Forces. More than 6,000 personnel serve in Britain's armed forces from overseas, mainly from the Commonwealth. Their service to our country earns them the right to live in our country, yet the government charges huge fees to apply for British citizenship. So someone leaving the forces now, with a partner and 2 children, has a bill of almost £10,000. It is unjust, it is un-British, and I want to see Parliament use this Armed Forces Bill to get ministers to scrap these unfair fees.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The story of the selfless action and incredible bravery of Corporal Sukarnavalu, who was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, is but one example of the kind of sacrifices made and that continue to be made by Commonwealth servicemen and women in our armed forces. It is therefore deeply regrettable that despite that sacrifice, they are facing shameful treatment when gaining visas and regularising their immigration status. During their service, Commonwealth personnel are exempt from immigration controls, but within 28 days of their discharge, they must either apply for some form of leave to remain or return to their country of origin. After serving 4 years, they are entitled to apply for indefinite leave to remain, but must pay the associated costs. As the Shadow Secretary of State said, that means a service leaver with a partner and 2 children would get a bill just shy of £10,000 to settle in the country that they risk their lives for, right at the moment they're transitioning to civilian life. Without leave to remain, they cannot legally live and work in the UK, claim benefits, or access free NHS treatment. This issue has gained media attention recently following the unsuccessful efforts of 8 Fijian British Army veterans to bring legal action against the government. One of the claimants, Taituzi Ratathautau, a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns, was given a bill in the region of £30,000 following an emergency operation after he was deemed ineligible for free NHS care. These veterans may have lost the legal argument, but it is the government who is now losing the moral one. These men fought for our country and are now living here in limbo, fearing destitution and deportation. To its credit, the government has acknowledged there's a problem and has taken some steps to ameliorate the harm that's being done. The Home Secretary promised me that she was working to correct the situation, and the Veterans Minister has stated his intention to launch a public consultation to introduce a path to citizenship. These measures have my support, but it's time for the government to stop tinkering and get on with making amends. To be truly effective, any reforms must address 3 key areas. First, under current rules, service personnel can apply for ILR after 4 years and naturalisation after 5. These should be the benchmark for any fee waiver scheme that's introduced. Secondly, the proposals must also incorporate dependents. And thirdly, the government needs to bring forward a plan to help veterans and their families that have already been caught up in this mess. As a show of good faith, the 8 veterans involved in the legal action should be granted emergency leave. Madam Deputy Speaker, ministers have committed to making the UK the best place in the world to be a veteran. It is a lofty ambition, but one, I hope, around which we can all unite. But if the government wants to ensure that their vision is realised, then they must, as a matter of urgency, deliver justice for all of our Commonwealth service personnel. We must never forget that we owe these men and women a huge debt. Telling them to pack their bags is not the manner in which to
hundreds of years. One of my most recent visits before these difficult times was with the Royal Welsh on Salisbury Plain, where I was driven around in a warrior by a fantastic Royal Welsh soldier who also happened to be a Fijian. And as we've heard today, there is a proud tradition of Commonwealth soldiers serving in our armed forces, especially the army, and particularly strong links with some countries, such as Fiji in Wales. But on many visits, I have met personnel from across the Caribbean, Africa, the South Pacific, Canada, Australia, and of course the remarkable Gurkhas who I've holed up with under simulated attack with at the Infantry Training Centre in Catterick. And they serve alongside us and for us, as have so many for so many generations, with the same bravery, determination, and professionalism as anyone else. and with recent issues in recruitment, they've become even more critical to our forces, in some cases comprising well over 10% of an individual unit. Yet we're letting them down. I've been appalled to hear of Fijian veterans who've been left destitute, homeless and without adequate food, relying on veterans organisations and regimental associations. What on earth is happening on discharge, and where are the support and resettlement processes? And as has been rightly exposed, the issues around visas for settlement of family, travel for compassionate leave, other administrative issues, separated families, and so many others. The Ministry of Defence need to get a grip on this issue. They need to undertake a root and branch reform and do the right thing by those who serve us from across the Commonwealth, and ensure that we treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve for the service they've given.
Areas such as visas for Commonwealth personnel, and we have the ongoing case of 8 Fijian soldiers. It's both unfair and unjust that many of our veterans remain without legal status in the UK. This bill does not hold the Home Office to account, or indeed include any provisions to rectify this situation.
I'd also like to pay tribute to Labour-led South Tyneside Council in my constituency of Jarrow, where earlier this month a motion was passed unanimously outlining their support for Commonwealth veterans.
And finally, Mr Deputy Speaker, we heard from the Honourable Friend for Cardiff South, who spoke passionately about support for Commonwealth veterans, and I'd like to pay tribute to the tireless campaigning of my Honourable Friend for Barnsley Central on this important issue.